Hi, good morning, good afternoon, whatever and wherever you are. I am Raymond Camden, your host for this new show, Code Break, streaming to you from the dark, murky swamps of Louisiana. No, I don't live in a swamp, but I've had multiple coworkers and friends throughout the years who were absolutely convinced that I live in a swamp with alligators. I don't live in a swamp, although there are probably alligators reasonably close, closer than you want an alligator to be in general. But no, I am on dry land. If I were to dig 6 inches down into the land, it'd be wet, but I am not in a swamp. So, welcome to the first episode of Code Break, and therefore the best episode because it's the only one out there, but still the best. I want to start off before I say anything more by sending a huge, huge shout out to a very old friend of mine and a good friend of mine, Brian Rinaldi. He is the creator of this network. He has been someone that I have been able to gripe to many, many times, probably too many times, and someone that I've been able to ask for advice about multiple different things. And I am incredibly happy that he has allowed me to go into the Certified Fresh Events network of shows and be on his platform and use it as a way to bore y'all with stories and code and stuff like that. So, big, huge thank you to Brian. And I know he's in the audience. So, I will, I hope he's paying attention. So, what I'm going to start off with uh, is a kind of a deep introduction into who I am. Uh, I I've been in presentations before where the speaker spends like 5 minutes talking about themselves, and like nobody wants to hear that. And I totally don't want to want y'all to hear that as well. But I thought I'd kind of start off by giving you just my background of who I am, how I got into development, because it's kind of a non-traditional way, perhaps, and just tell you a little bit more about me, so you can understand like why I want to do this, why I want, what got me into talking to developers, talking to people about code and programming and stuff like that. So, uh, hopefully, this will not be too boring, and hopefully, you'll maybe learn something kind of cool about me. So, first, the basics. Happily married to a wonderful wife who is perhaps maybe a little bit more nerdy than I am. I think we kind of go back and forth in terms of who is the most nerdiest, but she is incredibly helpful and supportive. Together, we have 8 kids, and just to make sure you understand, 8 kids, and I could probably do a whole session just on how you manage a family like that. I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit later in today's talk. I am a developer advocate, and I will explain like what that means to me and like how I got into this. A developer, a writer. I currently work at Adobe as a developer evangelist, and I plan on using one or two of these sessions in the future to showcase some of the things that I work on, some of the APIs that I'm involved with, but not today. So, some background on what got me into code. If you know me in any way, you probably know that I am an extreme Star Wars fan. Like you could probably see some of the things behind me and could have guessed that. Um, as much as I am a Star Wars fan, there was another movie that was really influential for to me when I was growing up. In 1982, the movie Tron came out, and if you've never seen it, first you should. It's for its time, the CGI was incredible, but the basic premise was that the lead character gets sucked into his computer where all the programs are living, breathing entities with personalities and all that he can interact with. And great action movie, really, really good. Great sequel that came out as well. But seeing that at 9 years old, it really lit a spark in me. Now, I hope that even at 9, I kind of recognized that, uh, you know, that's not what programming is really, really like. I hope I had that realization, but it absolutely kind of kickstarted my interest in computers and programming in general. My mother's employer sent her home with a Apple IIe or either 2E or 2 Plus. I know there were different machines, and I forget exactly which one we had. And for some reason, they also sent along a bunch of games. So as you can imagine, I took those games and I played them. And at some point, I cracked open the Apple Soft Basic book because I wanted to write a program. And to this day, I remember the first program I wrote. I remember the error I got. And then I remember how good I felt when I fixed that bug and my program ran. Like that was a narcotic hit of some sort that has got me addicted till my age now. So it worked. And actually, it's a great example of developer experience because the whole reason that I had a bug in my code is because they showed the code listing and I saw that and I typed it in and ran it. And then after the code listing, they shared an important detail about how you were supposed to hit the enter key or return key after the end of each line. Now, 30 years later, lots of experience in developer relations. I know that that's the kind of thing that you put in front of a code listing so people don't do what I do. So I did a lot of basic coding. I also like tried to hack my games as much as I could. I am a huge gamer, and I still have memories of playing Bard's Tale on the Apple and using a disk editor to edit my stats to give me more experience and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so I just gonna continue doing that, and like I was convinced, like my path when I finished high school, and I took all the comp sci classes I could, which back then were a grand total of two. Uh, I was convinced that I was going to get a computer science degree, and I was either going to go into computer graphics or computer security. Another film that I thought was really cool was War Games, even though it was about nuclear disaster. Um, and I promise I won't ramble too much, but I love the fact that in War Games, one of the first hacks he does is a social engineering hack, which absolutely is still one of the strongest vulnerabilities that you can take care of now. Uh, but anyway, so I entered college, full scholarship. I'm very proud to say that. And a comp sci program and started taking serious computer science classes. And something interesting kind of happened. I had always been really good at math. Like I kicked math's butt. I had no trouble at all with math. And then I discovered that there's like math, like casual consumer math, and then there's like enterprise kick your butt level math. And literally, math is what got me out of computer science because I could not hack calculus 3 and anything above that. Like, I just, like, no. Now, I had always enjoyed my English lit type classes, and I discovered that there was a English program that was focused on technical writing, and that kind of resonated with me. So I switched out of comp sci, got into technical writing, and it was about that time that the web was launching as well. So I started building real basic websites. I could remember the day that JavaScript was introduced. I could remember the build of Netscape that included background images for web pages. Because y'all, seriously, y'all could find, you can go online and find web pages where all they did was offer backgrounds that you could take and put in your web page. Um, Things like Granite Rock, which sounds horrible, and it totally was horrible, but that was a big honking deal. Um, so I finished college with a lot of focus on the web in my spare time, essentially, and was able to get a job for a web development company in town. There were a couple. in our town, and I got a job, and things kind of took off from there. I began my web career back in those days. You kind of did everything. So I would do Photoshop mockups, I would do design, I would do HTML. I was not very good at the creative aspect, and the web platform was incredibly simple back then. So I kind of migrated into more of the server side code, Perl CGI scripts to do counters and form processing. Um, we're definitely going to do a session at some point on working on forms because that's been like the most important thing since day one. And at some point, I discovered a application server called ColdFusion. Um, at that time, I had a project that needed to work with SQL Server. I knew that Perl could do it, but I wasn't looking forward to it. And ColdFusion promised to make that easy. So I picked up ColdFusion and I really, really liked it. At that time, it was really only ColdFusion, PHP. I don't think people were doing Ruby on the web back then. There weren't many choices out there, and ColdFusion I think was one of the simplest ones, and also one of the best communities. What I started doing very early in my career was I started to blog and share like what I was learning, and sometimes it was simple stuff like, "Hey, ColdFusion has this feature. Here's an example of it." I had to run it myself so that I could see it in action and know that it actually worked. And I would just share that, and I was able to pick up a lot of readers and things like that, and also start going to conferences and presenting on Cold Fusion. By the way, I don't do much Cold Fusion nowadays, but that community like, still exists, still around, incredibly friendly, like the friendliest community of devs that I've ever seen. So fast forward 10, 15 years. Doing a lot of unofficial evangelism for Cold Fusion for development, doing a lot of blogging, doing a lot of presenting. And at some point, oh, yeah, let me use that fancy. Yes, ASP. I did forget about that. I had to build one site in even then it was called Classic ASP. And oh my God, I did not like that at all. I was not a fan of ASP. Um, so after like 10, 15 years or so, I was getting a little bored of Cold Fusion. Like I felt like I had beat that horse to death. Like I blogged every single possible topic. And that coincided with the web platform kind of taking, making moves to go much more quicker. There was many years of like IE5 being the only decent browser and a lot of stagnation and just nothing happening. And then like all of a sudden, the web platform began to move really, really quickly. If you're around back then, this was when HTML5 was everywhere. Everybody was talking about HTML5 and building fun stuff with those technologies. So, me kind of being tired of being only a back end person and seeing the web platform kind of jumping forward got me moving back into doing JavaScript. I had done JavaScript again, like day one. I was writing JavaScript and playing around with it, but I hadn't used it heavily because for a long time it was so hard to write code that would work in IE and Netscape Navigator. It was just a pain in the rear. So fast forward 15 years, started working with JavaScript and just the web in general. It's funny. I can remember I attended a lot of HTML5 presentations because that's what I do when I'm at a conference. I attend and see, take notes on how presenters are showing things themselves. And I noticed that when people would talk about HTML5, there was a lot of talk about Canvas, and using the Canvas APIs to draw pictures and stuff like that. And I was kind of like like surprised because like nobody was talking about the fact that there were new form fields. And I had been doing form processing since literally day one. And when you tell me that, hey, there's new forms and there's client side validation baked in and like really, really practical stuff, I when I started to do presentations about HTML5, That was my focus. I focused on the practical things, the things that I thought 99% of us would actually use in our day to day. So, as he pauses for a sip of water, I spent many years unofficially kind of evangelizing for different things, giving presentations, doing a lot of technical writing. I wrote five or six, or I should say, I co-wrote and participated in five or six books on ColdFusion. Uh, that was back in the day when if you wrote a technical book, you can go into a bookstore and actually see your name there. And like the first time I saw that, I flipped out. I was so happy. Um, Technical books aren't quite the market they used to be. But anyway, um, I had been looking for a while to get like a real developer advocacy, developer evangelism. Like I wanted that job for real. In 2013, I was lucky enough to find one with Adobe, actually. At that time, Adobe was doing a lot of work on the web platform. So they were kind of beefing up their staffing. I was able to get hired and talk about some of the things they were doing. It's also about the time where a technology called PhoneGap or Apache Cordova came out, which was a way to build mobile applications using the web platform. So I was very lucky in terms of, being hired as an evangelist and not really needing to push a product, more push the web platform. While I was at Adobe, they actually released a bunch of tools, a bunch of free tools related to working with the web. Things like Brackets. Brackets was my favorite editor for a long, long time. A very lightweight, web-based focus editor, actually built with HTML and JavaScript and CSS. They had tools like Edge Animate that would allow you to do web-based animations and more. All really cool stuff that I got to talk about and share with people. And being that they were free, it was even more fun to talk about and share those tools. So, life goes on, life happens. I ended up later on moving from Adobe to IBM and talking about Node.js and stuff like that. And I have hopped around a couple of more times since then, uh, mostly focused on either a web platform, serverless code, um, all things related to that area. And now I find myself back at Adobe again, working on our document APIs, Photoshop APIs, and more. That was a long time of me talking about myself. I apologize. I swear to y'all, the next one's gonna be like, "Hi, I'm Ray. Let's go." Like that is pretty much it. I will say I forgot to mention. So along with being happily married with 8 kids, I also have 5 cats. I am waiting for one to walk in here because she walks in here every 5 minutes or so, but she must be sleeping. And I have one big, stinky, really dumb dog who looks at me like I'm the best thing on earth. So she is a little sweetheart, and I love her very much. So, my main idea for what I want this to be is I want to build stuff with y'all. Normally, like when I do a blog post, like it's done. Like I've already built my demo and I'm just talking about it. When I do a regular YouTube video, again, like it's already done. Like I know it works, and I'm talking about that thing. I want to do something that's maybe a bit more risky or different for me and have a show where we can look at something and you can watch me go into the docs. You can watch me run the code. You can see how I do it. We can just try stuff and it may fail. And I think that is okay because I know like in my real life, there are days where like I'm gonna research this, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna see if it works for me. Oh no, it didn't. Well, great. I will remember that for next time. So I'm fine if that happens on this show as well. Uh, and we'll just kind of see what happens. Um, yeah, no, Nick, I am not. Okay, so funny story. I did have an assembly class in college. I don't remember anything about the class except for I passed, and I have no idea how I passed. Like I was not good at assembly. Um, I've had an itch to take a look at it again, especially now that there's WebAssembly. But it feels like the kind of thing that is just not a match for me. Like it's good for other developers and not necessarily me. I will say, on Facebook, I ran into a basic group, like a group about the programming language, and I kind of miss playing with basic, just a little bit, not much. And I am thinking about maybe downloading a basic interpreter and just way to play with it and just see what happens. And heck, maybe we'll do that on one of these shows. So that's kind of like what I want to do on the norm. I want to do something different for today. And instead of kind of talking of, about building something live, I thought I would talk about my technology stack. That is something that I saw a blogger do years ago, where he just did a blog post of like, hey, for my day to day, I use A, B, C, D, and E. And he explained why he used each of those technologies and what he liked and what he didn't like. And I thought it was great. Like, I'm always curious about what people are using. If you're presenting and I see an application in your doc or taskbar that I don't recognize, I may go ask you, like, well, what's that program that you're running? Just because if you use a tool, I may want to use it too. So that is my plan today, is to kind of go through a list of the things that I do, that I use on day to day. I tried to make them in a sensible kind of order, kind of like top level down. I don't think I did a terribly great job at that, to be honest. But it is what it is. And I am very curious to see what your comments are about it, and just what your take is. And by the way, this is, to be clear, a very religious slash political type thing. Like if I told you what my favorite type of beer was, I absolutely do not expect you to agree with me, even though the correct answer is Marzen. Uh, but I will share what I think, and you could tell me what you think. And maybe I will introduce you to one or two tools that could be useful for you as well. All right. So that was a long time of me talking. And oh, another of my really old friends, Jason Dean, is in the audience. Hello, Jason. I'm very happy to see you again. All right. So I'm going to start at the top level, and this absolutely falls into the religion slash politics type thing. Windows. I grew up on an Apple, but switched to an IBM-ish PC in high school, and had my 386, my 46, my Pentium, uh, stuck in Windows for a while. And then when Apple introduced the MacBook Pro, I was absolutely intrigued. I was definitely ready for something new, a different operating system, a different way of doing things. I just wanted to try it. To this day, I remember I ordered the MacBook Pro laptop, and I am an obsessive UPS, USPS, FedEx tracker watcher. Like I love to see my package go to two different places. And I heard the UPS truck drive up. I knew he had my laptop, and he walked from the truck, and he's holding the laptop in one hand and just swinging his arm like he was carrying like a magazine. Like, oh, so this is not a 10-pound ThinkPad laptop. This is something a little bit different. So I used Macs for 5, 6 years, and I kind of got bored with it. I kind of got like, yeah, this is kind of the same. They're not really doing much. And it was at that time that Microsoft began to get interesting. So they started to work on certain programs. They started to build their own hardware, the Surface line, that I thought was really, really interesting. I remember the first time I saw the Microsoft Surface, the one with the detachable screen. I was kind of sold, and there were various things that they were showing at their developer conferences that I just thought was cool. And the impression I got, and once again, this is absolutely just my opinion. I don't expect y'all to agree. I got the feeling that Apple was kind of resting on its laurels, like, "Oh, we have developers. We're done. We don't have to do anything more. Like they'll take whatever we give. They want a touch screen. We'll give them a touch little bar on their keyboard. We know better." And it felt like Microsoft was more like, "Hey, we really want to get you back. So here's like 5 or 6 things we're trying." Um, this was also when they built their own phone operating system as well, and just in general, like I felt like Microsoft was trying. They were trying to do something to make developers happy, and that resonated with me. So that was part of why I switched to Windows. One other reason, let me find my cursor here. I'll show you two things at once. Was when they announced the Windows subsystem for Linux, which basically was a Ubuntu operating system embedded within Windows. So I had a lot of familiarity with Linux. I had used it in college on my Mac. Obviously, I had used it, and the idea of being able to, at the command line, make use of that was really appealing. I am no command line ninja at all. In fact, if I have to find a file in Linux, I have a note on how to do it because it's not it's nothing that makes sense to me. But I preferred it to DOS for sure. And so, when I thought, I could use my Windows programs, I could use Linux in my shell, that felt like the best of both worlds. It did ship a little bit slow. It was not the fastest thing out there, especially when um, it had its own file system and you could reach the C drive and so forth, but access to anything that was on the Windows side was really, really slow. They have completely gotten past that now, and things are much quicker. The other thing that excited me was, or one of the things that I use, is what you see right here, which is the Microsoft Terminal program. I think officially this has replaced Command.exe. I know that they were planning on killing off Command.exe or making it not the default. I haven't turned on a new Windows machine, like a brand new version of the box one in a while. But I know the plan is to make this official, not WSL. Obviously, it's still Command.exe, but with their terminal program being the terminal of choice. You get tabs, you can make profiles. One thing I really dig is that when I write books and I need to do screenshots of the command line, you see my default here has a lovely cat on it, but I could do things like give me a shell with no background, so it's a more appropriate for a screenshot. And you could define as many of these as you want and define other settings as well. But this is something that I kind of live and breathe in all day long. The tool that I use probably next most would be Visual Studio Code. I had mentioned that I had used brackets for a long time. Excuse me. But Adobe had kind of pulled back from that project. So they weren't really working on it as much. And when Visual Studio Code came out, I kind of leapt on it. I thought it was great. What you're seeing here, in case you don't recognize the little green icon, this is their insider build. It updates once a day, so it's kind of bleeding edge. But in the 3+ years that I have used Visual Studio Code with the insider build, it has broken, I'm going to say, 5 times. And then all I do is switch to mainline Visual Studio Code. So it's not that big of a deal. But I liked seeing the new features come out pretty quickly. So I will do all of my development in here, so writing JavaScript code and stuff like that. But I also do all of my technical writing. You're seeing a post here, and I believe this is my last blog post. So I will write Markdown in here. When I write for other publications, I will write Markdown as well. If you have never seen Visual Studio Code, then welcome. It does have a Markdown preview baked into it that I could see like so. But at this point, I feel so comfortable with Markdown. I typically don't need the preview for that. Now, Visual Studio Code does have a lot of extensions available for it, and you're welcome to write your own as well. I will say brackets made writing extensions really easy. Visual Studio Code is not quite as easy. I did it once or twice and didn't enjoy it. And to be clear, that's no reflection on the actual integration or what Microsoft built for that. From what I could see, it's a great API and it's a very powerful API. But for the kind of extensions where I wanted to spend like 5 minutes building a nice little fun tool, it didn't really necessarily make it easy to quickly write simple stuff like that. So I don't really do that very much anymore. And honestly, I pretty much have what I need. And speaking of that, let me kind of show you some of the extensions that I use on the daily. Um, and I'll be honest, a lot of these I forgot that I installed. This morning, I was looking at my extensions because I was planning on showing y'all. And I was like, oh, I don't even remember supporting that or adding that. But I'll point out a couple of them that I think are pretty nice. ES string HTML gives you HTML color coding in JavaScript template strings. Now, if you don't know what that means, make a quick JavaScript file here. So a template string uses a backtick and allows for variables inside using a $ bracket notation. This is Ray and some HTML in here. Hello. You can also do line breaks as well. So, without this, with regular JavaScript strings, you have to do like string contactation. You have to plus strings together. That's not the right word. Let me just put that there. So I really like being able to use template strings in JavaScript. It's one of the nice, powerful features. This particular plugin, if you add a comment, star HTML, star COMSOL like that, you actually get color coding in that string. So that is a handy thing. The other extension I'll point out is Grammarly. The fact that I do a lot of writing means that I need help to work with my writing. I am not a perfect writer. I'll share a writer that I like, John Birmingham. He writes some really interesting science fiction, fantasy, etc. type stories. Um, he has a Patreon where you get early access to his chapters as well as his thoughts on the writing process. And he will share like a chapter of his work and he'll have typos. And it's like, oh, wow, like a professional grade level writer, author, he makes mistakes as well. So I am very good at finding yes, I'm talking to you right now. I'm really good at finding your typos and your grammar issues. I'm really bad at finding my own one. So having from what I understand, unofficial Grammarly plugin right into code means that as I write my long, boring blog post, I can get flags on things that I should fix. Now, I don't fix everything. Like sometimes I'll say my speech is too colloquial or whatever, and I say screw that. I have a voice, etc. But it will like find things like where I don't match the tense, or I have a plural subject and a singular or whatever. It finds the things that I really care about. Like right here, write a one sentence. What's wrong with that? Yeah, I guess I could do that. I could put a dash in there. I think I ignored this because this was a prompt I used in Gen AI, and I wanted to use exactly what I said. So back to my extensions. Markdown PDF is one I use a lot. When I have to have fellow Adobeans review my content, uh, shockingly, they like to have a PDF that they can mark up and do comments on. So there's an extension that I use that will convert Markdown to a PDF. Another cool one, Postman. I have not used this yet. I've installed it. I want to show this in a later session, so I'll just close that for now. I have Python support as well. Word counter. I just like to have a basic idea when I write a blog post about how many words I have. Also, I write for some publications that pay me, and they typically will say like, "Hey, can you give us at least 500 words or so?" Typically, word count is not a problem. It's stopping me from writing too much. Uh, so yeah, those are my extensions. Those are the ones that I really care about, and I've not forgotten that actually exist. But let me show you a few other tools as well. CodePin is a really interesting one. It lets you, basically work on HTML and JavaScript stuff live in the browser. So I can do things like, hello world, yada yada yada, get an output down there, and do things like this alert one, and have it run automatically. Let me get rid of that before it runs again. So you can work, iterate, and create code pins that showcase whatever. And I have found this useful for a couple of different reasons. Uh, One would be where I am working on my desktop, but I know that I'm about to go to my laptop and I don't have a chance to go to a repo. So I'll put it in here and save it and then just open it up in my laptop. Another reason is that if I want to show it at a presentation, if I build a code pin, when you are done watching my presentation, you could take my code pin, and once you don't see it now, but like once this is saved, anybody can go in here and they could fork your code pin and then make modifications. I will be honest, like a lot of times when I'm learning something, I love to take existing code and just literally make one small change, like hello world to hello world. I'm excited about it, just because I want to see the iteration of code changing and it running. Once you have a code pin done that you're happy with, you can share it, you can embed it. If you visit my blog, you will see a lot of code pins in here. The only thing I'll point out that is not necessarily great about CodePin is that on a laptop, I find it really small, especially once I start doing my console as well. Then there are a couple of web technologies that don't work in CodePin. I honestly can't remember many, but I believe geolocation is one of them. Or actually, to make it even more obscure, geolocation in a code pin doesn't work when it's embedded. So there are a couple of edge cases I've run into where it's just, code pin doesn't work for me. So another resource that I've used from time to time is Glitch. Glitch is very good for when you need server-side technology as well. So if you want to create something with HTML and JavaScript and have like a simple Node.js server running in the background as well, uh, Glitch supports it. I have not built a lot with this yet. See if we can find my projects, but I've enjoyed using it. I want to use it more. I will share. I haven't run this in a long time. Let's see. All right, great. So one of the last glitches that I built was a Markov chain generator horror code, horror movie title randomized creator. Uh, this title is buggy as hell, but I love it. Christmas bloody, Christmas bloody, Christmas bloody beginnings. But yeah, I have a blog post on this and how I use the Markov chain. You can think of a Markov chain as a old Gen AI solution, but a bit simpler. Uh, Flee the children. Like I think that's great. I love randomized stuff, but I want to talk about that in another session as well. But Glitch made it easy to kind of work on this project. And let's actually open this up real quick. Nope. Let's look at the code. Use source. Oh, edit project. That's what I want to do. So Glitch gives you a full editing environment. It gives you a preview as well. And like I said, you can do server side code as well. So this is one solution that I think of when I need that particular thing as well. Actually, this is a great little question here. So what do you use for image optimization? So I typically only think about image optimization when I am writing a blog post, right? And for that, I keep it pretty simple. I will take an image, like a screenshot of something. I will drop it into paint.net. Let me actually load that. That's a tool I use. I will literally just paste it in. Yeah, whenever you're ready, paint.net. Oh, okay, over here. No wonder, over here. Um, I'll do a large screenshot here. So this is pretty large. So imagine this is going to my blog post. I will take that, I will paste it into paint.net, and that's huge. And I will resize to 650 and like that. Now that's a bit small because of my resolution, but like on my blog, that would be normal. So Met, I hope I'm saying your name right. That's generally what I use. I also use Cloudinary as well to do URL based optimization. That's a huge topic I don't want to get into, but in my blog, I can actually take like a banner image, I have a heavy image, wrap it in a Cloudinary URL, and Cloudinary will reduce the file size and kind of do everything for me. Hope that answers your question. That's a good one too. Any thoughts on glitch over Code Sandbox? I used Code Sandbox for a little while, and then I think it got buggy. But to be clear, going on hazy memory of that, and because I don't do stuff with back end very often for my blog posts. It's more 100% front end. So CodePin works most of the time. The last time I needed something that was more of a real server, like and something lightweight, uh, I had been hearing about Glitch. I followed some of the people who work there on social media, and so I just tried it, and I thought it was fun. So no real reason to get Code Sandbox. I have used it in the past. I just haven't used it recently. One more code tool I want to show. Run.js does exactly what you think it does. Get rid of that token right there. That token's expired, so don't try to copy and paste it. But Run.js, let me maximize this. It lets you write JavaScript and then just run it like so. I forget what I was doing here. I was converting longitude and latitude to tiles for something I was doing in mapping. This is a bit like having an easy and quick Node.js runner in a window. So when I am writing code that I know I don't need to save, I don't need to care about like longer than like right now, I will go into Run.js. It has tabs. You can name the tabs. It's a great way for me to prototype stuff. I never or rarely stay in Run.js, but I will take something, I'll run it a couple times, and like when I feel like, okay, yeah, this is something that I want to keep, I will copy that to my file system. But this tool is free. They do have a subscription, and I forget what services they give you when you pay for it. But I will say this is one of the few things that I actually pay for because I thought it was worth my time. I may have even bought a license for my laptop as well. It's an Electron-based app, but it performs just fine. I'll also say it supports installing npm packages, so I can install a npm library that I need to use in my code, and it supports setting its own environment variables, which is great. So if I want to test copying a key into an environment variable, I can do that and access it, via process.env. Blah 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 right there, and that will work just fine. So I use this tool quite a bit as well. Outside of code, I am a big fan of Microsoft To Do. In fact, I have a list of the things that I would like to talk about on this show, and you could see right here. In fact, and one of them is uh, showing the Microsoft APIs to get the data from Microsoft to do for automation tasks. I've built something like that in the past, and I kind of want to do it again. This is also where I keep my blog ideas. I have horrible memory, and typically when I am walking my dog, I get great ideas. So I will open up Microsoft To Do on my phone and jot down the idea. And this is where I keep track of everything that eventually I want to blog about. And there's currently 97. I promise you, not all of these are going to come to fruition, but Mortal Kombat ponies, I really want to make happen. I just need to find the time. Maybe on this show, we can make it happen at some time. But when I am running out of ideas to blog about and I want to keep a consistent blogging schedule, I will keep things in here and hit it when I need inspiration. The other thing that I use quite a bit is OneNote. I was a huge Evernote user for maybe almost 10 years, and Evernote just really crapped the bed. Like they did all kind of wacky stuff and upsells and all that, and performance just got worse and worse. I talked earlier about like how my wife and I manage our large family. Well, part of it is with shared notes. So we had shared notes in Evernote for things like the grocery list. Like if I know that we need more bread, and oh God, do we need bread every single day? I could add that. And then if she goes shopping, she would see that and pick it up. Uh, but we started having syncing issues where like I would add something or she would add something and it wouldn't show up, and it got horrible. So I began doing some research into alternatives with the mindset that it had to have decent sharing built in, and I wanted something that she, as a non-technical but very smart person, would feel comfortable using. OneNote is an okay answer to that. Um, I think I like it more than she does. But for right now, that's what we're using and how we manage, again, shopping and even stuff like with 8 kids, like there's no way we can memorize all their social security numbers. So we have that in a note that we share that we can use when we need something. Apparently, early on in a relationship, when she met me, she made a note of all my kids so that she could know their birthdays and stuff like that. So we use it to help manage our life, but I use it a lot for like all my technology stuff. And I like to keep the things in OneNote that I know exist, but I forget the particular. So I have played with Cloudflare serverless, which I believe I already have on my list to talk about. And if not, Cloudflare serverless. There we go. I played with it the last couple months and I really enjoyed it, but like I knew that I would forget. I knew that I would remember that they supported using environment variables and having a way to fake that locally, but I knew that I would forget the exact particular. So I took that big, giant, very cool feature and have it down to like OneNote, like add this file and from the CLI, do that. So that is like the way I keep notes, and I have a lot of stuff over here for various different things I'm working on, and basically copied all that from Evernote. Also use it as an excuse to clean some stuff up, which was nice. So that is Evernote. In terms of browsers, again, I've been on a Microsoft kick. I like Edge. Um, don't dislike Chrome, but I kind of dug the way Edge worked, so I use Edge. The way that I use Edge is I use the mainline Edge browser for the browsing. I use the dev build for work. That way, I have a separate window for my work email and my work URLs and stuff like that. I like having that mental separation. And speaking of mental separation, I keep all of my social media on Firefox. That way, like if like, oh, I know that right now I want to feel bad about myself. I'll go to Firefox, or I want to get depressed, I'll go to Firefox. Yeah, social media is really, really fun now. But I have that segregated, separated into Firefox, and I go in there. By the way, personally, right now, I am using Threads, which feels good for news. I'm using Blue Sky, which I'm close to not using anymore, and Mastodon, which is good for technical stuff. I still, I hate to say it, I still check Twitter every now and then, and I will share a blog post of mine every now and then just to get people to look at it. I feel ashamed. I'm sorry, don't hate me. But yeah, but I'll use those three separate browser entities so that, like, when one is active, I know that's what I'm doing now. I'm working, I'm doing other work, I'm checking social media and not working at all. Um, that's how I use those particular browsers. And I don't really use any cool extensions that I know of. Um, I do have, what is this one? I do have one called Custom Elements Locator, which will tell you when a website is using web components. And let's see, I know I'll go to github.com. I know they're using them. And oh, I probably typoed. I don't want to go to where this is taking me. I can tell you that right now. All right. Yeah, so that little thing highlighted there, and I could see the web components in there. But outside that, I'm not using a lot of browser extensions. At the actually no, let me show you one more thing. Um, no, I decided I'm going to skip that and save it for a later day. One of the last things I will show you is my analytics, and I will drag this out from a different window so y'all can see it. Give me 1 second. So I have two analytics I use. Come on over, browser tab. All right. So I host my site on Netlify. My blog is built using the Jamstack, using 11 so it's a static website server. Um, I used to use Google Analytics, and then Google Analytics got all enterprise in version 4. And I was like, I'm a technical person. I'm not the smartest one, but like I have no clue what your reports are telling me. I just want to know how many page views I have. And Google was like, no, I'm not going to tell you that. So I stopped using Google Analytics. Netlify has this baked in. It is a commercial service, so that's something to keep in mind. But I love the fact that I have one page where I could see, like, okay, my page views are doing okay. I had a spike on January 19th. I have no idea what I blogged then, but I had a spike. Um, Visitors, locations, and my top pages as well. I'm not convinced how accurate all this is because for the last year, my sorry, 11-year-old posts on ColdFusion and OAuth have gotten the most traffic. Like I said, not convinced at all that that is accurate. But I combine that with Goat Counter, which is another free service. Its report on the top pages seems to be a lot more sensible and shows a lot less traffic than Netlify. So I kind of look at both of them to try to get an idea. But uh, looking at this, I can see what is trending. This was handy to me when I was learning and blogging about Alpine, because I could look at my stats on my Vue.js posts and see, oh, like this one, table sorting with Vue was very popular. I should build that in Alpine or just vanilla JS. So uh, that's mainly the way I use stats. Also, I'll be honest with you, it's also an ego thing to see, how good or how bad I am doing. So that is, oh, you know what? In the last minute, I'll share one last thing. Um, Minimize. Hold on 1 second while I minimize. All right. Minimize, 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 minimize. This background comes from a Windows program called the Reddit Wallpaper Changer. And all it does is hit a couple different Reddit subreddits that share wallpapers, grabs one and renders it to screen. It's a pretty good service. You can make it change quicker or slower. Excuse me. You can blacklist wallpapers. I've not had anything show up really bad, but I've had some that I just really don't like, and you can just blacklist it and it won't show up again. But I have mine set to change every couple of hours, and it's like a pleasant surprise. I see it show up typically on my second monitor over here, and it makes me happy. So that was a lot of me talking and pretty much almost an hour. And like I said, we didn't actually build anything. I just showed tools. I absolutely am going to be building something 2 weeks from today. And I will figure out, I have a list, so I'll figure out exactly what I plan on showing. I hope you join me then. I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't want to send me feedback, that is fine. I want to make this as awesome and as fun as possible for y'all. So just let me know what I could do better, and I will try to do better. And thanks for your time and your attention, and have a great rest of your day. End of line.